the author of a book called Losing Our Religion, The Liberal Media's Attack on Christianity. S.E. Cupp joins us. Welcome, S.E.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem. We appreciate your time. Now, there's a couple of twists and turns here. My understanding is that you're actually an atheist, S.E. Is that right?
That's true.
Okay, but you believe that the liberal media is attacking Christianity?
I do,
yes.
All
right. Okay, rock and roll. So let's get started. Who do you think is this liberal media that is attacking Christianity? I mean, like if you're talking about me, yeah, I don't agree. I'm agnostic. I don't believe in Christianity or Islam, and if they're fundamentalists, I do attack them. Are you referring to me, or are you referring to like CBS, NBC, New York Times?
Yeah, I don't actually mention you in the book.
But, oh, you don't? Oh, that's weird.
I don't. But yeah, I'm talking primarily, I mean, I catalog probably dozens, maybe even over 100 different media outlets in the book, but primarily the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, you know, both opinion journalists and reporters. It's a pretty wholesale attack on Christian America.
Yeah, actually, we have the New York Times, a little audio from them. When we asked them, hey, what do you think about Christianity, they said to us,
I'm going to attack it.
See, so you must be right. Okay. So, listen, Essie, I'm missing it, so educate me. How does New York Times attack Christianity?
Oh, well, lots of ways, both in what they report, what they don't report, the way they report it. Just to give you one example, during the gay marriage debate out in California in 2008, in 2 months, the New York Times wrote 13 stories on the protests by gay rights supporters for Prop 8. Mm-hmm. 13 stories in 2 months. And in that same period of time, not a single story on the violence and vandalism perpetrated against Mormons and Mormon temples at the same time. Not one single story. You know, that's I think a lapse in judgment and irresponsible journalism.
But, Essie, you know, as I see the media in an absolute frenzy over the Tea Party people and covering their every step, for example, they cover on the same weekend or in back-to-back weekends, they had a Tea Party protest and a gay rights protest that was much, much larger. And the gay rights protest got almost no coverage at all, and the Tea Party guys did. Now, look, you could put that as a conservative bias, and sometimes I'm inclined to go in that way. Or sometimes you say, hey, you know what, that's a little bit more of an interesting story because of the different angles that they're taking. Is that a possibility, or you think, no, the people at the New York Times got together and decided they're anti-Christian?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's wishful thinking. At the same time as the Prop 8 protests were going on, and the New York Times wrote 13 stories, the first Tea Party protest happened, and not a single story on the first Tea Party that brought out
Wait. Essie, you're not saying that the Tea Party people didn't get enough press coverage. You're not saying that. You can't possibly be saying that.
Well, in fact, I am. I mean, the media, the liberal media, ignored the Tea Parties for as long as they possibly could, hoping that they would go away. And there's coverage now because it benefits the liberal media to cover the Tea Parties in this angry, vitriolic, and completely unfair way. But at the time that the Tea Parties first emerged, Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times completely ignored the fact that millions of people came out on a single day, not over 2 months, but on a single day, to protest high taxes and profligate spending and all of these things. I mean, not a single story. That's incredibly irresponsible.
Well, it would be if it was true, but it's not even remotely true.
It's true.
Okay, all right, hold on. A couple of things you got wrong there. First of all, it wasn't millions of people. It was a very large protest. We covered it, and I was surprised at how large it was. It was nowhere near 1 million, let alone a couple of million. Second of all, every single media establishment covered it. If CNN covered the Tea Party guys more, they just have to hand over their studio to them. I can't believe that we live in the same world where you think they're not covered enough.
What I'm talking about is in 2008, when the first Tea Party happened, the liberal media did not cover that. I just said, obviously, they're covering it now because it benefits them, and they're not doing a very good job, by the way, of covering it now. But when the first protest happened, they completely ignored the story.
All right. I didn't see that at all because I covered them covering it. Okay, but anyway, so now, Essie, I'm trying to get a sense of like what's going through your head, right? So do you think, and just to understand your argument better, do you think that the New York Times, CNN, et cetera, that they get together either within the New York Times building or they, you know, internally, or they get together in one big room and say, all right, let's figure out how to be anti-Christian here? Or does it work in some less conspiratorial, nefarious way? How do you think it works?
Yeah, I don't think it's a conspiracy where they get together and they decide, full-throatedly that they're just going to ignore these stories or that they're going to report them a certain way. I think the liberal media is inherently secular and inherently liberal, and so I think it's a very organic reaction to Christian issues and American Christianity and faith issues where they just collectively decide, probably without discussing it, on a way that they're going to cover or not cover the story. And I think it's happened over time, not, just one day. But it's become so collective and comprehensive and ubiquitous that it's frankly hard to ignore.
Except for the fact that I don't see it at all. So far, you've given me one example that I just flat out dispute your facts on. But so give me more, because I first of all, I don't see a liberal media at all, let alone some agreement to do so. I see a very conservative media. For example, during the Iraq War, if you were against the Iraq War, you were literally fired. MSNBC fired Phil Donahue. They Ashley Banfield, Jesse Ventura says they didn't put him on air for that. And you look at that and you say that's a liberal media. I don't see it. All right, tell me another example.
If you're suggesting that the media isn't liberal, you might be the only one. I mean,
first of all, you're 100% wrong about that.
Very liberal, but I mean, you're glossing over these issues. At the time when the Iraq War happened, this wasn't a conservative issue. This was the entire country was behind the idea in 2003 to go to Iraq. Over time, of course. Yes, absolutely.
I was doing a show against it
by the majority. Well, you were the only one.
I was the only one who disagreed with the Iraq War. I would love to have that title, because then I'd be the only one that was right in the country, and the rest of you were all idiots. But in fact, that's not true at all.
But MSNBC, CNN, the whole of the Democratic Party, everyone was on board with the decision in 2003, March, to go to war.
Exactly, because they were conservative.
That became incredibly
You just proved
unpopular.
my case.
You're telling me MSNBC is conservative?
At the time, they absolutely, positively were. Management has changed since then. But what else do you call people who they fired Phil Donahue because he was too liberal and wouldn't support the war? What would you call that? Liberal?
MSNBC is incredibly liberal by their own admission.
No, I haven't seen that admission, and we're talking about different time periods. All right, so you're convinced that everybody in the country was for the Iraq War, but everybody in the media is liberal, even though they were for the Iraq War. All right, so I don't get that. But give me another example here. We're talking to S.C. Cupp.
I didn't say that. You said that.
Okay, no. I'm quoting you from just now. You can rewind the interview. We're talking to S.C. Cupp. Her book is Losing Our Religion, The Liberal Media's Attack on Christianity. So give me another example of this, full-throated attack that those evil people have come up with at CNN or wherever you think they're doing it.
I didn't call them evil, but
no, just
another great example is U.S. News and World Report decided that in order to back their candidate, Barack Obama, during his campaign, or just 2 months after he was elected, to come up with the 10 best Obama face moments, one of which was Joe Biden getting ashes on Ash Wednesday, as if that had anything to do with Barack Obama. That just goes to show how far the media has to stretch to find actual faith moments of this president. And they want to, because they know that 80% of the country is Christian. But when Christianity is a problem for the liberal media, for example, Sarah Palin, they'll have her talking in tongues and cavorting with witch doctors and banning library books. I mean, it's lies, in fact. And it's hypocrisy, it's imbalanced, and it's totally transparent to anyone who bothers to take a look at it.
Essie, that was awesome. So your example of U.S. News and World Report being anti-Christian is that they celebrated Biden being Catholic.
As one of Obama's faith moments. Don't you see how ridiculous that is?
No, that's his vice president. And second of all, they told him. Hold on. Hold on. First of all, that's his vice president. They celebrate the fact that he's doing Ash Wednesday. On Obama, did they talk about him being in church? Yeah, how about Fox News wouldn't stop talking about it? Oh my God, did you see Reverend Wright? Oh, he's in this church and it's wrong. This church is terrible. Church. And then he gave a whole speech on race and then his how it affected his church and his Christianity and his faith. And you think people didn't cover that speech? You think they didn't cover that he was a Christian? Do we live in the same world?
They did. Like I just said, they covered it in a completely irresponsible way. Fox
Why
News
was it
the only
irresponsible?
outlet that was looking into Reverend Wright. Anderson Cooper on CNN said that his church and Reverend Wright was none of our business. The New York Times said the same in an editorial. You're right. Fox News was the only one asking
church, or you don't want them to cover their church? I don't get it.
About Barack Obama's faith.
Wait, I don't get it. Do you want him to cover that he's a Christian, or you don't want him to cover he's a Christian? Which, I mean, it seems like you're grasping at straws.
And with integrity and objectivity, which they completely don't.
Why? They covered that he was in church. I don't know if you like that or don't like that. What the hell's not objective about that? I literally don't understand your argument. And by the way, do you know that Mort Zuckerman, who owns U.S. News and World Report, is a conservative?
I do. He owns the paper that I write for as well.
Okay, so if he's a conservative, why is he telling his people, oh, do a liberal conspiracy to help Barack Obama by talking or not talking about his Christianity?
You said it's a conspiracy. I didn't. I never said that there's anyone at the top giving orders from the top down. I never said that.
Okay, but why would the U.S. News and World Report, owned by a conservative, okay, not a conspiracy. Well, I mean, what do you call it? You call it just why would they have a liberal bias if the guy who owns them is conservative?
Well, they have a liberal bias because they're liberal. They have a liberal bias because the political objective is to conflate Christianity and conservatism, and the ideological objective is to denounce Christianity in favor of a moral relativism.
So you think Zuckerman is trying to deny Christianity and et cetera? Okay, all right.
No, I didn't bring up Zuckerman.
Okay,
I don't think he has anything to do with it.
The paper that he owns.
Zuckerman's a business owner, a businessman.
Hey, all right. But yet in a country that you say is overwhelmingly Christian, he thinks it makes business sense to be against Christians.
I don't say it's overwhelmingly Christian. It is overwhelmingly Christian. That's just
okay, but why would he make that business decision? None of this makes any sense. All right, so let me give you a third opportunity. Give me one more example of how the media is so against Christians in the way that they cover them or don't cover them. Go ahead.
Well, interestingly, there's a good comparison when 2005, I think it was, two movies came out at around the same time. One was The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, a C.S. Lewis Christian allegory for children. And before it came out, the liberal media, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, were all very nervous about how this overtly Christian movie was going to be marketed. And will there be an audience because it's so Christian? And they gave it bad reviews before it even came out. They were completely against it. Meanwhile, it came out, it's like number 32 on the top all-time grossing films. It remained in the top of the box office for weeks at a time. Did very, very well. The same year, another movie, Philip Pullman's The Golden Compass, which is an atheist allegory, came out. And before it did, the liberal media was wholly on the side of this movie. They loved it. They hadn't seen it. Didn't matter. They were all for it. It was going to revolutionize film. Meanwhile, it came out and was like the second biggest net bomb of the year. Nobody saw this movie. The liberal media just doesn't accept that this is a Christian country. Christians go to the movies, Christians read, Christians watch television, and these kind of films get seen. They're popular. The liberal media is always behind the story on that.
Essie, those are wonderful assertions. So I'd love to get some specifics on it because I know...
I think I just gave you specifics.
No, I don't think so at all. Here, let me flesh that out for you.
Oh, it's in my book. You should read it.
Yeah, okay. I'll get right on that. So, listen, I know movie reviewers. They review movies after they watch them. Did she just hang up? That's awesome. Okay, she gave no facts on that. Which reviewer, before watching The Chronicles of Narnia, said it was terrible, and before watching Golden Compass, a reviewer said it was great? There is no such reviewer. He just says, oh, liberal media, they loved Golden Compass, they hated Chronicles of Narnia. Based on what? Based on nothing, because it's not true. It doesn't exist. That's why when I tried to ask her for specifics on it, gotta go. Name me a reviewer. Show me a review. It's not true, as with everything she just said. So her book is, I'll give her one more plug. She's S.E. Cupp. It's Losing Our Religion, the Liberal Media's Attack on Christianity. If you think she made a good case for it, check it out. Young Turks.